Right now, someone in your life is counting on you to need them. They are counting on your hunger for their approval, your anxiety about their silence, your fear of what happens if they walk away. They have studied you, mapped your weaknesses, and they are using every single one of them, not because you are weak, but because you never learned the one rule that makes a man untouchable. You have felt it before, that moment when you wanted something so badly from a person, from a job, from a relationship that you changed yourself to get it. You bent, you softened your edges. You said things you didn't mean and swallowed things you should have said. And the moment they sensed how much you needed it, they took everything. That is not a coincidence. That is a system, and today it ends. Think about every time you explained yourself when you didn't need to, every time you checked your phone waiting for a reply that would tell you whether your day was good or bad, every time you dimmed yourself so someone else could feel comfortable. You were not being kind, you were being controlled. And the worst part is you handed them the controls voluntarily because nobody ever showed you what it looks like to need absolutely nothing from anyone. Most men will read this and feel something shift inside them and then go right back to performing, chasing and needing, because understanding is not enough. You have to be rebuilt from the inside into something that cannot be reached, baited, or owned. This is not motivation or therapy. It is a reconstruction. Stay with this idea because by the end of it, you will understand exactly why the people who had power over you had it, and more importantly, how to take it back. This is not about becoming cold, it is about becoming complete, and there is a difference, one that Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago. The truth is that many people in your life unconsciously trained you to need them, not out of evil, but out of their own fear, because a man who needs nothing cannot be controlled, and control is how most people feel safe. You were taught that needing people is love, that vulnerability is always strength, that chasing approval is human, and while some of that is true, there is a weaponized version of it that turns your openness into a leash, where your insecurities are stored not with care but for leverage. Think about the jobs that made you feel disposable, the relationships where you worked hardest and received least, the friendships where you were always available yet always taken for granted. The problem was never your heart. It was that you entered those spaces without armor, fully exposed in a world that does not reward exposure but exploits it. Humans are wired to use what is available, not because most are monsters, but because need signals opportunity. When you radiate hunger for love, validation, or success, you attract people who feed on it, who keep you running and performing while giving just enough to keep you hooked. So you run, you perform, you become more agreeable and more available, and the moment you slow down, the approval disappears and you return again because your need is the chain and they are holding the other end. The brutal truth is you were never the problem, you were the product, shaped to remain reachable and manageable in a system that does not benefit from self-sufficient individuals, because a man who has mastered himself cannot be sold to, guilted, or leveraged. Think of one person whose opinion affects how you feel about yourself and hold that thought, because removing that dependence removes their power. Machiavelli observed the rise and fall of men driven not by enemies but by their own desperation, their need for approval and inability to function without validation, and from that he understood that the world is divided between those who are moved by external forces and those who move themselves, and the difference between them is everything. His insight that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both is not about fear itself but about dependence, because the man who needs to be loved is already controlled by whoever holds that love. This knowledge is not about manipulating others but about protecting yourself, about becoming something that cannot be easily read or controlled. The moment you need something from someone and they sense it, you give them leverage, your urgency, your over-explanation, your discomfort with silence all broadcast that need, and the wrong people know how to read it. You have seen how desperation pushes opportunities away, how wanting something too much leads to losing it, because need repels while calm detachment attracts. The simplest practice is to pause before responding, to detach from the emotional need and respond from choice, because that pause is power. Mystery also protects you because when everything about you is known, it can be used against you, so not everything needs to be shared, Your ambitions grow better in silence and are revealed through results, not premature exposure. Detachment from outcomes does not mean you stop caring. It means your emotional state is no longer controlled by results or other people's reactions. Your effort is yours while outcomes belong to the world, and that boundary creates freedom. Instead of chasing what others have, build yourself into someone who no longer needs to chase, because the one who chases is always led while the one who builds becomes the destination. This is why those who seem less desperate often receive more, not because of luck, but because they are not operating from need. Control over your reactions is equally critical, because those who can provoke you can control you, while those who remain composed maintain power, choosing responses carefully instead of reacting emotionally. True strength also comes from building a life without single points of failure, where no single person, job, or outcome can collapse your stability, creating multiple pillars of support so your foundation cannot be easily shaken. Ultimately, the paradox remains that the man who needs nothing becomes everything, not because he seeks power or validation, but because he is complete within himself, and that completeness draws respect and opportunity naturally. Everything here only matters if you decide to change now, because once you understand these patterns, you cannot go back to ignorance. The version of you driven by need must be left behind. You are drawn to this idea because something in you already recognized the cost of living this way, and now that you see the mechanism, you have the choice to step outside it. This is not about becoming untouchable to the world, but about having enough control over yourself that no one can use your needs against you. It is the difference between being controlled and truly living, between reacting and choosing, between chasing and building. And once you cross that line, you begin to move through life with intention, stability, and a quiet kind of power that does not need to announce itself.